From the 10th of the 10th month of 1438, reading the Devil's Quran from Martinet Press. In the minds of many, the Satanic Bible, published in 1969 by Anton Sazander Levay, of April 11, 1930 through October 29, 1997, was the key text of Satanism. No longer is the veiled or atheistic Satanism of what was born, of who was born Howard Stanton LaVey and his Church of Satan declared on April 30, 1966, the source on where to go to find out about Satanism. That opened the door wider than figures like Aleister Crowley did to the authentic and not just inflammatory practice of demonolatry or devil worship. Ancient and modern forms of what the churches would call Satanism are arising. Texts are being published and translated, which may be grimoires or method manuals, and other types of expression of the dark occult. I would venture that some have specifically been waiting to hear of this demonologist's, one who studies demon mythology, take on what may be the most profound claim on a sacred scripture to date. There are, a sacred, unholy scripture. There are other claims to direct inspiration and direct revelation from Iblis and other shayateen min al jinn, but in terms aside from graven signs, they all seem to fall short of the theistic Satanism lifestyles described in the Devil's Quran in English from Martinet Press in Ramadan of 2014, 1435. Before we get into my alternative introduction to Martinet Press's The Devil's Quran, is a quote from the second act of Percy Bysshe Shelley's Prometheus Unbound. That quote is about a personified and powerful living darkness within a dark throne. The story of the Devil's Quran, rendered into English, starts in the fall of 2011 with facsimiles of Quran-e-Shaitan, or the Devil's Quran. It opened with 4 pages of typical Quran, or something like Al-Quran 1 through 250, and then continued with another text in a different handwriting. Some wanted anonymity about their involvement in the procuring and translating of this text that was supposed to be from the mid-1700s in the University of Karbala, Iraq. They are obviously not of anything that any faction of Islam would consider authoritative for themselves, and seems like it could be a satanic response to Islam. Method, intention, and graven images, like unto Persian miniatures, are said to be clear differences with Islamic texts. In addition to having a mirroring Islam flavor, it has that for the Greek magical papyri, PGM 4 1716 through 1870, and PGM 12 365 through 375, in what could be by the same author. Martinet Press provides some notes for this text like a grimoire, without denial of the real devotion to demons that is authentic demonolatry. Will the Arabic text be made available? They intend to, when they have the rights to share this antinomian and Shaitanic, or more properly, Ibadah Shaitan. Ibadah Shaitan, Ibadah Shayatin scripture that always treats the dark entities as real powers that can affect and have an effect on the existence and experience of humanity. Whether or not a shaitan, iblis, or whatever you want to call the devil is the real author, the projection of what the author acts like people would believe he'd say, are something else. It may not matter. These things deemed blasphemous are believed and done by some. They do have their effect on them and others. This may be the base of what shall become a dominant current in the Theistic Satanism that is one of the fastest rising faith types. The contents of this book start with introduction of its history and cultural context, an overview of the 10 profane chapters as a claim to meet the challenge in Al-Quran 11:13 to produce Ashri, Sawari, and Mithlihi are the 10 steps in the structure like it. In the name of chapters and verses, this text bears a likeness. And my translations of what are likely the words are Surat al-Majd, the glory, and 7 ayat. Surat is the word for chapter, and ayat is the word for verse, but it goes beyond that. Surat an-Nar, the fire, in 37 ayat. Surat al-Harb, the war, in 41 ayat. Surat al-Asrar, the secrets, in 55 ayat. Surat al-Awlad, the children, in 49 ayat. Surat al-Arsh, the throne, in 49 ayat. Surat al-Zom, the darkness, may be Al-Zolimat, and both have the meaning of transgressing bounds and more than a material darkness. In 59 ayat, Surat Ataj, the crown, in 69 ayat. Surat Mukudus, Surat Mukudus, the holy. Al-Muqaddasa is the Holy Land mentioned in Al-Quran 5:21. Al-Quds is within. Beit al-Muqdis is the Temple Mount. In 59 ayat, of course it's a different temple here, and Surat al-Layl, the night, in 7 ayat. Then come invocations in 2 formulas and instructions in 6 parts. The Devil's Quran is not like Robert Ketten and cis lex Mahmut pseudo-prophete, in Latin from 1143, nor is it like any other Orientalist translation or rendition of an Islamic text with interpolations and twists to make Islam sound demonic. It can be said to be a version, but only in the sort of way of what if Satan himself had his own? Surah 1, 24, 68, 9 and 33, 112 and 55, 26 and 52, 93, 89 and 19, 17, and 99, 114, and probably others which I can't quite recall at the moment, or at least verses therefrom. Instead of the 19-letter sequence found 114 times in Al-Quran, each of the 10 apocryphal surahs of Satan start by saying, "By the King of the world." The opening chapter of the Devil's Quran, like Al-Quran, has a format of 4 invoking verses followed by 3 evoking verses, but to Iblis, Satan's name meaning as despaired of hope. Of course, I don't think Iblis specifically is mentioned by that name in the text. The fire has its own separated letters or huruf, which Sheen is the first and is not used in that form in Al-Quran, but Ka and Noon are. The identification with and becoming one with those entities treated as male and female gods and goddesses is given reasons here in terms of mythology beyond history and within it. The war continues the insult to God and establishes the thought of the multi-layered warfare against what they call the Blind One and his religions of the book, which include more than Abrahamic faiths. It offers a choice to make between the party of God and the demonic party. Predestination by God and Satan is among the reference of what can be called anarchist, immoral, or even criminal Satanism. It also starts with what can be thought of as abbreviated letters, and the unique one is also the first, Dal Ha Ra. The Secrets opens by making one think of the forbidden texts of kingly beings Harut and Marut, which were the light beings who tested the Babylonians mentioned in Al-Quran 2, 102 through 103. In a recent live ritual, I sort of had the Bible and the Quran battle each other on these issues. As opposed to the Islamic way, this text encourages the playing with the jinn, that is sihr, marriage and other types of relations with the shayateen min al jinn, demonic spirits, are encouraged by bodily and spiritual deeds. Animal sacrifice and blasphemy is part, but surrender of the self and the physical body is a part. Human filth and remains, menstrual and other blood, sexual fluids are acts, worship of planetary spirits, burning what shouldn't be burnt, and charms are but some of the ways that can be expressed and learned about. The Mao Cower are the terrifying one, and other secret names and phrases are used, but there are secrets not to be shared or even uttered too. The blowing on knots echoes the practice warned against in Al-Quran, Surat 113. The Children continues the deeds of darkness and opens with reference to the Satanic verses said by some in the crowd in the middle of Muhammad ibn Abdullah's first recitation of Al-Quran, Surat 53, 19 through 20. Al-Quran 41:26, and the making noise over the repeating of the revelation of God is given an example here. Al-Quran 17:64, as the voice of Satan, is given an example and the allegation that Satan himself reminded the people of the crowd, and obviously of how Al-Quran 22:52 speaks of the satanic influence of throwing something in with the laws, God in the singular and definitive form of the word. Revelation. Surah 4 also mentions how people worshipped goddesses, but the children here are more than the goddesses Alat, Manat, and Al-Uzza, the goddess, the fortune, and the mighty she, or what those names mean. It speaks of the planetary spirits in a style reminiscent of Suwar 55, 56, and 77 of Al-Quran. For them, an animal that can represent the guardian of the underworld, the consumer of flies, the shell of the land and sea, a dualistic predator, and the one willing to die in the cause. For them is an animal that, okay. Dogs and clean animals are preferred for sacrifices. The most common alchemical symbols are those used for the 7 children spirits, and are given the Arabic names of the planetary spheres. The attributes are what you'd expect for planetary and elemental magic, but there is no cursing or other elements of hypocritical Christian evil magic. The witch here only respects them. The practice only respects them, the place, and artifacts associated with the practices. Why do others worship what they either don't believe in or respect in order to blaspheme or renounce later? Okay, so the animals not hurt are the cat, the lizard, the frog, the serpent, and the scorpion, if you haven't figured that one out. Forgot that one for a second. A shaitan is said to have a throne in the north, and the throne hearkens to a shaitanic version of the elements found in Suwar 23, 52, 55, 56, and other parts of Al-Quran that deal with paradise hereafter. But this is that a shaitan is alleged to have. The vulnerability of the dying and other transitions found in places such as Al-Quran, Surah 79, is given a new take here. The darkness hearkens to be a counterpart of Surah 93 in its style and theme, but it extends towards guidance on how to say what is called Shaitanic prayer, pilgrimage, and self-mastery. The crown can be said to be like Surah 3, 4, 5, 19, 38, 58, 89, and 108 of Al-Quran in some of its style and subject matter, but it condemns rather than supports Jesus and other prophets of Allah. It contains elements contrary to Leviticus and Romans in the Bible. It advocates the preemptive dissimulation and deceit for a purpose, rather than the Islamic way of merely excusing those who do it only for survival purposes. The reader is provoked in the desire towards the personal sovereignty. Enmity between one's physical enemies is encouraged herein rather than peacemaking. The holy, as the meaning of Al-Muqaddas, is named after setting up a physical temple and letting in the presence of the Shayatin min al-Jinn as the children of Iblis. The format can be said to include themes or style like Suwar, chapters 2, 17, 18, 21, 22, 50, 67, and 99 of Al-Quran. It is like a satanic book of revelation. The closing chapter of the Devil's Quran is also as a protection of sorts, but it puts a shaitan as the master, deity, and ruler over darkness and humanity. You know, the first two chapters of Al-Quran, as through Muhammad ibn Abdullah, are as protections. So is the one before those two. The first invocation in the Devil's Quran is of Satan as a destroyer, and the second invocation is of Satan as a sometimes indifferent creator. Both speak of how he and even some of his names are beyond our ability to even express them. The first can evoke of its practitioner the desire to be possessed by a shaitan, the devil, ascending from a hidden throne into the space within. The second can evoke a longing to descend into a space where a shaitan is. It seems that we start here in the rational Apollonian and end in the ecstatic Dionysian. The Devil's Quran from Martinet Press has an instruction on ritual washing, thrice nightly prayer, daily devotional practices, sacrifice in general, the minor sacrifice and the major sacrifice. Common between them all is the inner and outer remembrance of Shaitan and often lesser beings considered as dark gods. The ritual washing includes ablutions of the generally exposed in public areas, but is closed with the almost invisible act that a spiritual person would generally consider spoiling it by filth, a keep away from fluid, or that touched by fire between the brows. The daily prayer is done facing north, reciting Surah al-Majd with the hands at the sides, which is considered a mark of arrogance, according to some sayings attributed to Muhammad ibn Abdullah by Islamic historians. Some other parts of the Devil's Quran, prostrating with one's own choice of words, glorifying Satan when rising, repeating these steps before bowing and prostrating again. Supplications and demonic remembrances are encouraged after that. Further, what can be seen as a parody of Islamic as-salat, the repetition of a name of Shaitan for 1,000 times, or one of his children are done with or without beads, but they are not discouraged as in non-Sufi forms of conservative Islam. The connection of the choice of names towards one's own choice between sedition, violence, primitiveness, planetary evil magic, and worldly personal matters is an important link between invocation and invoking yourself to change by that. The drink or mixed drink offerings are among the minor offerings that contain some blood of the chosen, the Satanist, and are the udhiya sagira, or little sacrifice. The udhiya kabira is also done in darkness with minimal light. A minor sacrifice is by a pit or well of disposal and may contain more blood and a dedication of life and death to a shaitan. Lesser demons need not either, but that is typically a part of each. a major sacrifice is an animal sacrifice. It requires touching the sacrifice and speaking unholy names, with the animal and themselves to the north, the place of the mythological throne of Iblis, a Shaitan, the biblical king of this world and age. In conclusion, the profane surah, the invocations, the instructions, and the preface do form some opinions. Does the Devil's Quran live up to that name, or respond properly to the challenge in Al-Quran? In order to fit the Arabic definition, it has to be something that someone recited and is now in writing. And to be truly satanic, if we look at the Yusuf Ali and Muhammad Marmaduke Pickthall translations of Al-Quran, the work of William Blake and John Milton, and the work of Dante Alighieri, we may have lived up to that literary style and even reach the greatness of the Divina Commedia if we look at the Arabic that is the Devil's Quran, is to be the Devil's Quran, that the Devil's Quran is supposed to be a translation of. In the original Arabic, I would presume that it falls clearly short and would not meet the challenge of neither having the stylistic or additional elements without changing meaning, nor using what is alleged to be revealed from God. Does it have to be in order to be an authentic satanic scripture? Its original could very well be directly revealed from Iblis or one of the lesser Shayateen min al-Jinn. If not, it could have been directly inspired or a representative of what a Quran by Satan would be. It seems to share what was and what is an authentic expression of an Arabic, Persian, and other Semitic blend of theistic Satanism in a text that can be used to direct or connect to an entire lifestyle, just as Al-Quran, as revealed to Muhammad ibn Abdullah, did. It enforces the Catholic idea that Satan can produce a level of literary beauty that they can't, and seems to claim to do what the Church of the Crusader period failed to do, produce 10 chapters like the Islamic Quran.